All right, Bulls and Bears, the housing market just sent some warning signals, and maybe not a warning signal, maybe a welcoming signal. If you're someone looking to buy a home and waiting for home prices to come down and become more affordable, well, we're not going to see a home price crash unless something drastic happens. But based on what's been happening and what's likely to continue happening, we're going to see further weakness in the housing market with more inventory and, yes, ultimately lower prices. We're going to tell you the magnitude and the details behind it, all the data and the numbers. Let's go ahead and get started right here. And we're looking at a recently updated chart here of housing inventory, not just new homes, but all homes for sale in the U.S. This is the inventory here. Let's scroll down. And we're looking at a chart that goes all the way back to 2016, so almost 10 years ago. And what are we seeing here? We're seeing a surge ever since January. And now it's the highest that it's been since late 2019. The housing inventory, homes for sale, homes sitting on the market, very few buyers. And this is the highest, again, in over 5 years. But something that I want you to pay attention to, notice every year, inventory starts rising early in the year as more sellers put their home on the market, as the snow melts away. But it continues rising typically until late in the year. In this case, look at last year, October. The inventory rose up until November, right? So we're only in June. We have many, many months to go. What's this rise in inventory going to look like by the end of the year, by let's say November? We could be well above the highest that we've seen, even going back to 2016, folks. So this could be well above a 9-year high before the end of the year. And I don't see any reason why inventory would not stop increasing, because it's still very difficult from an affordability standpoint, still very difficult for most people to get into a home right now. Rates are still high. Prices obviously are still high, even though they've come down some. And we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But overall, it's still difficult. People, they don't have the down payment. People are strapped, loaded up on debt like we've never seen before. Consumers concerned about more debt coming because of the higher prices, because of the tariffs. People are concerned and worried about that. So that's another reason why they're reluctant to pull the trigger, so to speak, on buying a home, the biggest investment that most people will ever make. People are very reluctant. One, because they just can't afford it. Two, they're worried about, even if they can afford it today, will they be able to afford the home down the road when the price of everything goes up because of the tariffs and many other things that we're seeing. So we're seeing a lot of uncertainty out there, and that just leads to people being reluctant. Not everybody. Some people are still jumping in, but people for the most part are very reluctant on getting into a home right now. Now, with inventory rising well above a 5-year high, you would expect to see home sellers become desperate and start cutting their prices. Well, that hasn't happened yet on a large scale, but there are a couple areas where sellers are starting to cut their prices very heavily. We're going to talk about some cities here, including some in Florida and some in Texas. That's where the things are really starting to heat up. But first, let's just look at nationwide median home prices and look at what we're looking at here. We're seeing prices down from the peak, and we're looking at fourth quarter 2022 was 442,000. The recent numbers we have out of the first quarter, 416,000. So let's zoom into a 1-year chart here, and we can see we're down significantly from the peak. And of course, the second quarter isn't done yet. At the end of June, we'll have the second quarter numbers. So make sure you're tuned in and subscribed so we can give you the update as soon as those numbers come out. Should be right around the end of the month, early July, we'll have those numbers. But you can see prices are down from the peak. Now, if you look at Realtor numbers and Redfin numbers and Zillow numbers, they're not trying to display, or they're not trying to talk about the fact that prices are down from the peak. What they'll do is they'll put out headlines in certain cities, and they'll say home prices are up year over year in certain cities. But overall, across the entire country, including the rural areas, out in the country, not just downtown and city areas, we're seeing prices weaken significantly from the peak. And let's go to a couple cities where it's really, really noticeable, and sellers are starting to cut their prices here. Let's take a look at a couple here. All right, and let's go out to Austin, Texas, people. So not a bad looking home, 4 bedrooms, only 1,100 square feet, so it's pretty small bedrooms. But definitely I would say to most people that would be more than a nice starter home. And it does look fairly updated, not bad with the wood floors, wood countertops, etc. Looks like it's been staged with a nice little plant on the bed. Nobody puts their plant on the bed like that unless they're staging it to make it look nice, right? So things like that, you can make sure you can tell that it's staged. The back porch or front porch in this case, you could see the neighbor's car. Not bad, right? But let's go down to the price changes and see how long this one's been sitting on the market here. Again, this is out of Redfin. And we see that they bought this back in 2010, so they're sitting on some hefty equity as they paid only $129,000 for it. So unless they took out a bunch of home equity loans, they're sitting on pretty good equity. But they put this on the market back in October of 2023. Looks like they pulled it off the market. Or has it been sitting that long? Let's see, October. Wow, if this is correct, it doesn't say that they pulled it off the market. It just says it's been on the market. And maybe there's some data missing here, but even when it was listed again in May, so it looks like they did pull it off the market. So look at May 1st, $459,000, and just a few days later, a week later, they dropped the price by $10,000. Now we're about a month since that price drop. We're here in June now, and are they going to price it down? Are they going to price it lower again? Or are they going to cut the price? So obviously, this has been sitting on the market now for over a month. And it looks like they're going to have to lower their price if they want people to buy this. All right, let's stay in Austin, Texas here for another one. This is 7310 Broken Arrow Lane in Austin. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1314 square feet, and $545,000. Take a look at the price action on this one, though. This one's interesting. We're seeing this home listed back in April 25th of this year, $550,000. Only a couple weeks later, they dropped the price to $545,000. You can see that here. But then since then, look what they did. Because probably no offers came in, they decided to try to rent it. And trying to rent it for $3,000 a month ever since May 20th, folks. So obviously it's been a few weeks. We're in early June here, so it's been more than 2 weeks, going on 3 weeks, and still listed for rent. So what's going on with this seller? It looks like some sellers in certain cities are starting to get a little bit desperate here, and they can't even decide if they want to sell the home or rent it. Now let's take a look at what's happening on the higher end of the market. Higher end here in Austin, Texas. We've got Labrador Bay Court in Austin. 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath, 3,587 square footage. So nice size home. And of course, well over $1 million. This is definitely considered high end for Austin. And what do we see in here? I'm trying to find it. Here we go. April 10th listed for $1.25 million and $1,225,000. Dropped the price less than a month later on May 1st. Price dropped from 1.225 to 1.095. So, over $100,000 price drop, folks, and it's still on the market. They took it off. They recently relisted it, a day later here. So now it's been a month, and are they going to drop the price again? So bottom line is, folks, if you're looking for a home at a cheap price, you might want to think about waiting to see how this plays out, because we're just starting to see sellers get desperate in certain markets, not every market, but cities in Austin and Florida are seeing very similar rises in inventory and prices dropping here. Let's go out to Florida here, but first, let's take a look at what's happening in Austin with inventory. It's even more pronounced than the nationwide chart that we showed you just a few minutes ago. And instead of just staying in the city limits, let's go all the way out to the entire county. It's Harris County. Or no, Travis County. Austin is in Travis County, right? So we've got over 6,700 homes on the market as of May, and that's over a 9-year high. This only goes back to 2017. So you can see the inventory surge has already happened. And if this happens like previous years, we're going to see inventory keep surging until October and November. So what's going to be happening? It's going to be off the charts here, in Travis County, there in Texas. And what's it going to mean when there's a not record-breaking, but probably the biggest surge in inventory that we've seen in over a decade will be happening this year? What's going to happen? Well, buyers are going to have a lot more to choose from, and therefore sellers are going to have to do what? They're going to have to lower their prices, right? So things are happening very slowly and in a few markets, not all markets, but things are definitely happening. Things are changing. All right, folks, going on down to Florida, another state that saw record-breaking, just massive influx of people moving to that state ever since 2020, especially from 2020 to like 2022. But now just the opposite's happening. People want to leave because prices in Florida and Texas also have skyrocketed so much, and the cost of living went up so much, and the cost of home insurance, folks. Home sellers are in big, big trouble in Florida. Let's just pick Orlando in this case. We see a big surge in inventory, the highest that we've seen in over 9 years on this chart here. We had just about 2,500 homes for sale in early 2022. It spiked all the way up to nearly 14,000. So almost a seven-fold increase, folks, in homes for sale in Orlando. So you would expect some sellers to beginning now to get desperate here. We're going to look at a couple listings here in Orlando and see what kind of price drops we're looking at down there. Okay, and I just picked one of the first listings that came up in this search here. Searching for entry-level homes to start with. $370,000 for this one there in Orlando. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,320 square feet. So let's see if there's been a price drop. I'm guessing yes, that there has. Going down here. A little bit. Okay, listed back in March at $376,000. Dropped a few weeks later to $370,000. The home was pending, but it looks like it might have fell through because it was just listed in June. So a little bit of a price drop. Buyers dropping out of the market. Maybe the buyer got cold feet. Maybe they didn't qualify for the loan because they had too much debt. Who knows? But bottom line is we're seeing price drops happen also. Sellers getting a little bit desperate in Texas and Florida. Let's look at one more here in Florida. All right, let's go down to Sarasota, Florida, one of my favorite cities in Florida. I remember going down for spring break. It was actually before spring break. It was like when I was in Michigan. And driving down from Michigan in February when it was still had snow on the ground to Florida and just fell in love with it. We spent some time in Sarasota. So let's check out Sarasota, folks. We've got this entry-level-ish home. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $269,000. And looks like a unit. We'll check it out here. 1,451 square feet. Let's see what we got here on price action here. Listed in March, $275,000. Price dropped in April. They waited about a little over a month to drop it to $269,000. So we're over a month now since that last price drop, and obviously the home's still on the market. So the seller, if they want to sell this thing, they're going to have to drop the price again. And look at this, folks. They bought it way back in 2007 for $184,000. So not much equity. If they drop it anymore, they're going to be looking at less than $80,000 price gain. But then you've got all the fees and commissions and stuff to worry about. So you're lucky to get out of this home making any money, even though they bought it, about 18 years ago, folks. All right, people, one more here out of Sarasota here. We've got St. Louis Avenue, and we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet, $575,000. And let's see how this one's looking here. Look at some pictures here to start with. Okay, looks like newer carpeting. Semi-updated, nice staging there in the patio. With the enclosed outdoor patio there. Tile. Wood cabinetry. All right, not a bad looking home here, but what's happening with the price? Well, we know the homes are sitting on the market. I would expect a few price changes here on this one here. Oh, wow. Okay, so back in February, this was listed at $650,000. Dropped it in March to $640,000. Dropped it again in March to $620,000. Dropped it a few weeks later, April 10th to $599,000. They waited about a month, dropped it from $599,000 to $575,000. So you can see they're chasing the market down. If they would have put it on the market initially at maybe $550,000, they might have got this sold. But now, here a few months later, the home obviously is still sitting on the market. So are these sellers going to be increasing the amounts that they're dropping the prices? So instead of $5,000 and $10,000 price drops, is it going to become $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 price drops or more? And this is just entry level homes. When you look at the high end of the market, we have home sellers dropping them $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 and more. And also something else that I think is being kind of underreported is the number of people leaving the country, and not for the reasons you might think. Look how many people are surging over to Puerto Rico, and home prices are skyrocketing. Home prices are rising at a staggering pace on this island as tax incentives lure wealthy buyers. Yeah, not just tax incentives, but people are leaving the U.S. for many other reasons. Homes in Puerto Rico are rising at a staggering price. Look at this chart, folks. Let me enlarge this here. This is a massive price increase here. It's almost straight up and down parabolic here. Exponential price increases here. Look at this chart. Puerto Rico, folks. So people leaving the U.S., not all of them that are coming to Puerto Rico are coming from the U.S., but many of them are. And we're seeing a lot of things start to unfold here in the U.S., including the social unrest that we predicted would happen this year. We predicted this back when we saw who won in November. We said it's going to get crazy and it's going to get real, and this is only going to lead to more uncertainty and instability in the economy, but especially too in the housing market. And on top of everything else, inflation's already rampant, but now on top of this, of course, tariffs and causing a lot of other uncertainty. Here's how they put it over at the Wall Street Journal. The U.S. economy is headed towards an uncomfortable summer. Companies are hiring, freezing, and investment to deal with shifting tariff policies. And this administration doesn't really even know what they're going to do next. It's pretty much day by day. We're seeing tariffs rise, drop, on again, off again. So definitely a scary time. I mean, for especially for somebody that's needing to get out from under your home and sell your home, but maybe an optimistic time for someone that's waiting for a better buying opportunity to get into real estate, like we mentioned at the beginning of the video, or maybe to upgrade to a nicer and better home, maybe a bigger home, or maybe to downgrade. Maybe you're looking to get out of a bigger home, and if you're trying to sell your home, though, that could be a little bit of a struggle right now. If you're in California, homes are still going like hotcakes out here. Even though inventory is rising, it's not as drastic as what we're seeing in Texas and Florida. But a couple more things here to get into before we get out of here. Take a look at this chart here. This was put out by a few different publications. This one happens to be Axios here. And the number of sellers, nearly 2 million. The number of buyers, about 1.5 million, folks. So people that are actively searching for a home, the lowest that we've seen. This chart goes back to 2013. So the biggest divide we've seen and the lowest number of buyers we've seen in over 10 years, and the biggest divide between the number of buyers and the number of sellers, right? So definitely interesting here. What's happening in Texas and Florida looks to be spreading across the U.S., although it very slowly. We could start seeing a lot of other states with rapidly rising inventory, like we're seeing in those two states that we looked at today. And also, how many of these home sellers that are cutting their prices are worried about being able to repay their loans, especially the tens of millions that are having to repay and resume paying their student loans, as now they're being reported to collections. It's seeing in their credit scores. Could be a lot of these people are putting their homes on the market. Remember, it's not just young people with college loan debt. It's people all the way up into their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, because cost of living is just too much. People weren't able to pay off these loans, and now a lot of them are backed into a corner. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on it, folks. Let me know your situation. Are you in the market for buying a home? Are you kind of sitting on some cash, looking for a bigger home maybe, or entry-level home? It's going to be your first home, so you want to wait for a better buying opportunity, and you're checking out the prices, the inventory. What are you seeing? I see a lot of weakness coming in the housing market this year for a lot of reasons. Again, people leaving the country, that's only going to escalate. We're seeing the riots start to pop off. That's going to possibly lower a lot of economic activity, and a lot more people, if you know what I'm saying, dropping out of the purchasing side of things and waiting and seeing what's going to happen here with tariffs and everything else. A lot of uncertainty, bottom line. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments. As always, everybody, thanks for watching. As always, keep stacking. We'll see you soon. Bye for now. Peace.